All right. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
I was cutting it close there on getting everything going. I don't know what the heck I was doing. I was struggling.
Just in time.
Just in the neck of time. Just in the neck of time. We'll give it a second. Wait for, since it's live, see if anybody comes in or not. Can you guys see the upper hand corner where it shows how many people are in here or not?
I cannot.
I cannot.
Didn't know if you could or couldn't. I didn't get it perfect. It's definitely that share screen has duplicated the thing a little odd, but I think you get the point.
Yeah.
Watching it. All right. Give just one more minute. We'll go ahead and get going. Welcome to Your Scary Stories Live, the podcast / show. It's both, right? I think podcast can be video these days. That's acceptable. Some of the old guard has fought me on that, damn it. But I'm going to go with it. This is the show where we share your scary stories live across all social media right now currently, and we're going to share some awesome, scary stories, some true, or at least the people that submit them said they were true. So I'm going to go with it. I believe the people.
Yeah.
These are true, scary stories. And joining me, of course, are Luke and Jack, fellow podcasters on other activities and longtime friends. Are you guys feeling scared yet?
A little bit, yeah.
I'm spooked out.
The pre-roll with some spooky music, and
And
got you in the mood.
The pre-roll went so damn fast too, and you're out there trying to actually set something up.
5 minutes is like that when you're waiting on, when you're wanting to do something here. It goes by so fast.
Yeah, I was so nervous. I was like, how can I get this done in time? But I made it work. I don't really know how, but so yeah. Just to explain how this works, we're going to take turns sharing some stories that have been shared, and we're going to share it with you, the social media world, and YouTube. And I don't know, is YouTube a social media? I think it kind of is.
Yeah, I would call it one, yeah.
In its own way. So I've got a couple stories. Jack has a couple stories, and Luke was the overachiever. He has one story we're going to share this evening. I guess I can go ahead and try to set the scene here. We'll get some music going, like get the scene, get the vibes going. You hearing it? Am I the only one hearing it?
Oh yeah, I can hear it.
Yep.
Oh, he hears it. Is it too loud or is it good or not, Luke?
No, it's good.
It's good. Okay. Well, I will start this out then with a story that I have here. This is the first story of the night that we're going to share. This is Ice Cream Truck Scary Story. Wow. So the person that submitted this wanted to be anonymous, but this is, I'll go ahead and get into it here. I lived with my parents until I was 28 years old. We lived in Camden, Maine, a rural boat town. They were hardly ever home because of work and just traveling a lot. So I'd hold down the fort a lot. My parents' property is large and private. They were not home. I'd often throw little parties. This is one of those nights I was going to throw a party. Ooh, wow, that's exciting. Everybody likes a party. I had 10 to 20 people over, and we all hung out in the backyard. It started around 6 p.m. because people started leaving around 11 p.m., and by midnight, everyone was gone. I was exhausted from a mixture of alcohol and being in the sun most of the day. That certainly made me more tired. I changed into my nighttime clothes and got into bed. But before I could even fall asleep, I heard something that anyone would not expect to hear this late at night. It was the sound of an ice cream truck. Only it was a tune I'd never heard before. It was a creepy sounding one. The tune continued to get louder until it seemed to be right outside. I laid there for a few minutes hoping it would stop. But when it didn't, I finally got up and I went to the window to look outside. I couldn't see anything from my bedroom window, so I went downstairs and looked out the living room window. I could vaguely see what had to be an ice cream truck on my lawn. My heart started pounding like crazy. I had so many thoughts running through my head. Who was it? Why were they here? And what do they want? I paced around the living room for a bit, not knowing whether to call the police, my dad, or simply wait for them to leave. The awful tune of the ice cream truck didn't stop, and it started making me go crazy. I decided to go out the front door to the porch. There I had a better view of the ice cream truck parked on the property, a little less than 100 feet away from my porch, parked in the grass. It wasn't exactly a typical looking ice cream truck. It was like a white van with ice cream pictures stamped and painted on it. I had a mixture of feelings, mostly confused and worried. Saying it was an abnormal sight would be a gross understatement. I stepped onto the grass with my bare feet and walked just a little bit closer to the van. The headlights weren't on, so when I got close enough, I saw there was no one in the driver's seat. When I got even closer, I saw one of the sliding doors in the van were open. I suddenly felt as though I could be attacked at any second. I looked around my surroundings in a panic, and then as quickly as I could, I ran back in the house and locked the door. Now, I decided to call 911. I asked them to please hurry, and the woman asked me to walk around the house to make sure everything was locked. I started from the main floor and worked my way down to the back door. The glass panel on the back door was suddenly shattered, and it was unlocked, and the door was slightly open. I whispered to the 911 operator about this, and she told me to go into a room with a lockable door and wait there until the officers arrived. I was freaking out and tiptoed to the nearest bathroom and locked the door. Then the operator told me to stay on the line, be quiet, and wait till help arrived. Just a few moments later, someone on the other side of the door tried turning the doorknob to open it, and then they started banging on the door. They actually banged 3 times. The woman on the phone said quietly to me that she heard it. I needed to remain quiet and very calm. Then all of a sudden, after a few moments, I heard the back door suddenly slam shut. Half a minute later, the tune of the ice cream truck slowly faded away and the van was driving away. I told the woman the van was driving away. She said to wait until the officers arrived. They took a disgustingly long time to arrive. When I was waiting in the bathroom for what seemed like at least another 5 to 10 minutes, if they had arrived in a more timely manner, they could have caught whoever it was that broke into my parents' house. Instead, all that happened was they filed a police report. My personal theory is that the ice cream truck tune was supposed to be a distraction for something while they broke into the house. I'm sure there was more than just one person in that van. I'm happy this happened to me when I was 23 years old and not 10 years old, because that would have traumatized me forever.
Lord, that would still traumatized me forever at 23. That traumatized me now.
So when I read this story, I was like, this is absolutely crazy. Somebody's commenting, wrestling soap opera is commenting on TikTok that it's fake. Maybe it'd be a heck of a fake story. I don't know. It's not from experience for me. It's somebody it's a scary story that somebody submitted. But nevertheless, we'll take a second to analyze this before we go to the next story.
Absolutely.
So I remember as a kid, the ice cream trucks would come around your neighborhood, and it was such a joyful thing. But he's taken this moment here in this story, it's something that's usually so joyful, and made it so scary and sinister, right? Can you imagine just laying there, and somebody else is mentioning on Facebook that the person, he did say he was intoxicated to start this off. He did say that, I guess. But you'd have to be hella drunk to be blacked out on this. Yeah. I don't know why I got people trying to get us onto some streaming thing. I don't know. But anyway, so to me, this was crazy when I heard about it, because I'm like imagining laying there and like all of a sudden I've got an ice cream truck tune playing, and it's sitting it's parked in my yard. But I mean, is this a tactic you guys believe could be done to try to break into a house?
Yeah, I could see that happening. I mean, there are definitely similar things that people do, like dress up as a gas company employee or something like that to get access to your house. So using some sort of distraction or
to get you out of the house,
or just to get in, like say, hey, I didn't look at your pilot light. You come up with a gas company uniform on, they'll get in, and then they could rob you or kidnap you or whatever. Things like that have happened, and so something like this being a tactic would make sense to me.
This story stuck out to me because, like I said, when I was a kid, there was a creepy guy that would drive the ice cream truck around town. So I actually thought about that creepy guy as I was reading this scary story that was submitted. So, man, call on the police, just remain quiet. As you read so many of these stories and you hear so many of these things, it's always just lock yourself in a room and be quiet. I don't know if I would be going outside if I wasn't armed or something, but nevertheless, I mean, I don't think when you hear an ice cream truck, you just automatically assume something terrible is happening. You'd probably be really intrigued.
Yeah. You think, well, I'm going to have a nice, delicious treat. Of course, depending on the situation, you might not be thinking that, but in this case, I don't know. It would be a confusing situation a little bit. You'd be like, well, why is this truck here?
If you're listening on social media live, make sure you like it, share it, help us get off the ground here, help more people see it. Break the old algorithm, as they say. Yeah. Luke, any final thoughts on this story before we move on? What do you think about it?
I mean, I think it's a very plausible story. It's definitely a very terrifying story. Any home invasion story is infinitely more, scary than simply like ghosts and goblins and stuff like that, because like this definitely happens every day all over the country, all over the world. And so the idea of someone, breaking in, uh, maybe using something innocent seemingly like an ice cream truck to perpetrate this crime is a terrifying notion. So whether or not the story is true, uh, the act of it is possible and most likely it's happened in some fashion somewhere, and it is a pretty scary story.
Some wrestling soap opera commented on TikTok. It would be nice if ice cream truck pulled up at night. Yeah. Do they even do ice cream trucks really anymore? I mean, I know this story is
I
probably
haven't
older
seen
when I
one.
was younger, but I
I
haven't
haven't seen one in a
heard an
long
ice cream
time.
truck in a while. If you're listening out there and you still hear ice cream trucks, let us know because I sure haven't. What about you guys?
Not in a long time. Actually, I don't know if I've ever heard. I mean, there was the Schwan Man, but he didn't really have a.
Schwan man.
he didn't.
There used to be an ice cream truck that came by our neighborhood when we were like 4 and 5 years old, but that was so long ago, and we never went to it because we never really had the extra money for it. So
Yeah, well, what can you say? All right, so we have Jack up next. Your scary story. We'll go ahead and let you kick it off here, Jack. What scary story do you have?
So this one comes from the Shockwave 4,
Oh,
and it's a little bit shorter, but they were talking about a time when they were 10 or 11 years old and they were playing outside with their brother and their friend, and it was in the backyard actually. And it says we ended up going over by a big pine tree, and my friend finds this butcher knife on the ground, and underneath it seems to be a bottle of ketchup. And then along with that was this what appeared to be like a gopher or some kind of animal that was just had been killed, possibly, and some of it was eaten. Uh, and this was all laying next to this kind of like tree stump that was like they had like a large backyard, and it kind of like went into the woods a little bit. And they went and told their parents about it. They were just kids, and they ended up calling the cops. The cops said that there was someone that was kind of like suspected to be in the area. That was it was very foggy memory for him because he was so young, but he remembers his mother telling him that it was something about oh there was this criminal that was kind of like in the area, and uh, he was under the custody of his dad at the time, so he wasn't like
incarcerated.
incarcerated. Yeah, he was just kind of like with his dad, and it was a very strange set of items, and but they kind of like went about their day or their lives after that. It was a couple of days later that they were asleep in their bed, and it was about 2 a.m. they think, and their dad comes into the room, opens the door, and he just starts shouting. He starts shouting, "Get out! Get out!" And the kid, he's not a kid anymore, but at the time he thought he was getting yelled at by the parent, like he was saying, "Why kind of like why are you saying this to me?" And the parent kind of like takes something and kind of like flings it across the room, and he turns and looks out his bedroom window, and there was a man standing outside, just staring through the open window. And they kept shouting, "Get out of here! Get out of here!" And this guy who's in the shadows, standing outside, who knows what his intentions were, he just takes running off into the backyard and into the woods that apparently was going to lead. It eventually led to their neighbor's house. And they said they remember seeing cop cars driving around that night with spotlights, kind of like shining off into the woods to kind of look for whoever it was. They actually never found out who it was, but they do believe it was one of their neighbors. And it said they end their story here with saying that it was 12 years ago when it happened, and they said they still remember how horrified they were that someone was peeking into their bedroom in the middle of the night.
Wow.
Yeah, this
It's got-
goes along with what we were saying just a second ago. A very real, very terrifying thing that can happen.
You said they think it was like a gopher. So that was
Yeah,
like the events
yes.
that led up to it. It's kind of what the story's saying.
Yeah, so I think they kind of like just realized that there was someone that was just getting into their backyard, messing with things, putting things in different places, possibly, eating wild animals or something like that, something to that effect. It's difficult for them to kind of piece together the seemingly, just strange events that were happening before that, but definitely, definitely very odd.
Yeah, that's something else there. That's the kind of stuff that makes you really kind of like feel anxious when you think about your own family, and you think about what could happen if I don't happen to walk in the room like his dad walked in that room at that moment. What if he hadn't?
I think the crazy part is how he's talking about his dad shouting at this person. That he even description like in the shadows, and obviously it's at night. But I see what you're saying because you have like lighting that kind of lights up a certain area outside, just like vaguely, whether it be the moon, whether it be a outdoor light. So just be off standing out of, I guess, what the person thought would be where you wouldn't really be able to see them. They're standing there for a
Right.
reason,
Yeah.
just shouting at them.
Not to mention, you've got like a certain number of years going by. Some of the details might get fuzzy on you. You're like, maybe they got a good look at them, maybe they didn't.
Of course, if you're watching this live on social media, all the platforms are going across streaming right now. Make sure you like and share it. That would help. Man, that was a creepy story. I think that that's another one where I'd be traumatized as a kid. How old did he say? How old did this person say they were?
They said 10 or 11. They don't know the exact, it was either they're 10 or they're 11. So
I think a little 10-year-old Jack would be scared.
Oh, yeah.
I'll pick it up here on the next story. It's interesting that you say that because I believe that in my story that I have here, this person was 10. Okay, they said they're 12, but we'll get into the story here. So this is the next story. This is I titled it A Scary Bedroom Story by Michael Welsh. He had shared. Thank you, Michael. I'll go into it here. I had the one bedroom in the house that wasn't on the second floor. My parents' house was a high ranch. When you entered the house, it spun off into 2 floors, with 1/2 flight stairs going upstairs and one downstairs when you entered. The downstairs level had the den, garage, my bedroom, and a bathroom. The other 3 bedrooms in the house were all upstairs. Since I grew up the oldest and the only boy in the house with 2 sisters, I got the room downstairs because it was the biggest and technically the coolest. After I turned 10, my parents gave my twin bed to my little sister, and I got a full-size bed, which was a bit of an upgrade because the room was big and it certainly fit a bigger bed better. When I was 12, my little sisters were around 5 and 8. So at this age, I would be allowed home alone, but my 5-year-old sister wouldn't be left alone with me, and my 8-year-old sister would only be left alone with me if my parents weren't going to be gone for too long or if they were just going to be gone for long periods of times of the day. If they were going to be gone for long periods of times of the day, they'd take both of my sisters. For this short period of time, I'd say like 3 nights in a row, I was waking up in the middle of the night for no reason, and I'd have trouble falling back asleep. Considering I was only 12 years old, I knew I shouldn't be having problems sleeping at this age. I was sleeping with the fan on next to my bed because it was so hot that couple of days, right in the middle of the summer. I wasn't sure what exactly was waking me up, considering the fan provided a steady white noise. One of these nights, I got up after waking up to refill a glass of water. I went into the bathroom right beside my bedroom to fill up the water in the sink there. And as I was filling it up, I thought I heard something come out of the inside of my room. I turned off the faucet and then just listened now for a moment, but there was nothing. I didn't hear anything except for the sound of the fan in my room. I walked to the doorway of my bedroom and I couldn't tell what it was, but something was creeping me out about my room. So I went upstairs to the living room and decided to sleep on the couch that night. I fell asleep eventually, but that same night I woke up again, this time to noises from the kitchen. I glanced and I saw the glow of the light from the fridge and sounds of someone rummaging through it. The way the floor set up at that kitchen was, it was out of view from the couch in the living room, so I couldn't see who it was in there. I just heard the noises of somebody going through the refrigerator. Eventually, I heard the refrigerator shut, then footsteps walked away downstairs. I was drowsy, so I went back to sleep. I believe it was the next day that my mom was folding clothes in my room, and she told me that my room stunk and I needed to clean up, whatever that smell was. I ignored her because I really didn't smell anything, but I wish I wouldn't have ignored her. That night, our dad turned the air conditioning on finally because it just simply got too hot. After we all watched a movie as a family together, everyone started getting ready for bed. I went to my room and played video games for a little while before eventually going to sleep. So when I decided to turn off my TV, I also turned off the console and rolled on my side to go to sleep like I always did. That night felt a little bit different because I didn't have the fan on because the air conditioning had been turned on. There was just the sound of the air blowing through the vents for the central air unit, the vents coming through the ceiling. Eventually, I was able to fall asleep, but a sound woke me up shortly after. I didn't know what the sound I heard was because now, all of a sudden, after I was awake, all I could hear was the air blowing through the vents in the ceiling. After a few minutes, it stopped blowing air in the room again and went completely silent. I heard some breathing, but it wasn't my breathing. I looked around the room. Part of my childhood innocence assumed it was my younger sister pranking me. I looked in the closet, but didn't see anything. I got on the floor and looked at the only other place I could think of to look, under my bed. I lifted the little piece of cloth that dangled at the bottom of my bed, and I saw a very large person laying under my bed on a pile of blankets. The person's head was facing me, but their eyes were closed. I fell backwards and basically crab walked out of the room as quickly as possible, and I screamed, "Dad!" I heard my parents' door swing open, and my parents came rushing out of the room, looking concerned. I pointed in the direction of my bedroom and said, "Under my bed." My dad went into my room and pulled out this very large, dirty-looking man. I remember my dad quite easily physically forcing the man outside as my mom called 911. I'm sure he went to jail for a while or something, but maybe not, because he had to be homeless. Who knows? This did a lot of mental damage to me. I didn't even want to sleep in my room anymore. I didn't want to sleep in the house anymore. I had to sleep in the middle of my parents for a while. My dad installed security cameras all over the house. We threw out all the food in the refrigerator that had been opened because we had no idea what he had got his hands and mouth on. The fear of someone being under my bed stayed with me for a long time. We don't even know how long he was hiding under the bed. It could have been a few days or even longer. The smell, the person going through the refrigerator, and the fact that I kept randomly waking up those few nights all made sense now. Whether he meant harm or not, having someone hiding under your bed is every child's biggest nightmare.
That one's
Jesus.
Lot to unpack with that one, Michael. Thank you for sharing that story. Wow.
Lord.
Yeah, that one would be very difficult because you really want to feel safe in your own room. That's like a very important thing. So I don't know. It would be very difficult to get to sleep for a long time. Yeah. I would think it would probably make it a part of my routine to check under my bed after that. I would have to know.
I guess so obviously I grew up with you guys, and I know you guys, I've stayed the night at your house, and it's the same. Sleeping with a fan is a pretty common thing.
Yeah.
And so when I was reading this story, I could relate to that just silence when there's no fan, but especially like when your air conditioner and your heater's running, and then it suddenly turns off.
Mm-mm.
And it's just dead. It's just absolutely silent at that point. One, you're used to sleeping with a fan. Two, your air just shut off. And you hear breathing, snoring, whatever it was. And it's not yours.
Yeah. That's a straight out nightmare right there.
Yep.
He was realistic, right? He thinks automatically like, "Hey, it's my little sister, probably playing a prank
Yeah.
on me," which would be more likely than a homeless man being under your bed.
Right. And then after when they were like, well, we should probably get rid of this food, that's kind of a very real
Yeah.
decision there.
So it sounds like he had stockpiled some of his clothes and blankets and been hiding under the bed. So this all makes sense now as he goes back, and he made sure to highlight in this story that his mom talked about the smell in that room, and he wished he would have listened. Did you guys catch that too?
Yeah.
No, I didn't catch that till just
He's-
now. But
yeah, so he should have checked then.
Yeah,
Of course,
yeah.
I mean, is there ever a good time to check for a homeless person underneath your bed?
This
I'm checking tonight.
this story terrified me, guys. I was scared.
I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that my bed is like a platform bed with like shelves underneath, like nothing could be underneath, I would probably also look.
I'm checking it anyways.
So-
I'm checking under my bed.
I'm trying to think of what that's called. Like, if you're listening live, you can comment along, or we're across all social media right now. Like and share it, of course. I think that's called the skirt of the bed, right?
Yeah.
My verbiage right there. So
Thanks.
can you imagine? You think you hear a noise. You've looked in the closet, nothing's in there, and you could think there's one more spot to check. That's under my bed. And as you slowly lift up this skirt of your bed, it hangs down to the ground. You see a person under there sleeping. It blows my mind how terrifying this would be.
Oh, there's two things there, because I was like, first of all, I was like, I'm glad this person was asleep, right? Because imagine seeing someone like eyes
if they were
open,
awake.
staring directly at you. That would be, I don't even know. But then he says he crab walks out, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. I want to get out of this. Just get
Hey,
out
Tori,
of here.
thanks for joining the live stream. Yeah, we're talking about scary stories that people have shared to be on the show here. So we're sharing them on the show here. You just missed a terrifying one. A kid. Yeah, if you're joining now, you missed a good one. A kid found a homeless man under his bed one night. He heard breathing. It wasn't his breathing. A long story short, after a good suspenseful story, he lifted the bed skirt up to find a homeless man sleeping under his bed. As a kid, as he ended the story with, and I'm going to agree with it, as a kid, the most terrifying thing is like a monster or something being under your bed. And that became a reality here for Michael.
Yeah, that's rough.
We'll have dreams about that one.
And not good ones either.
No.
We'll move on to the next story here. Luke, it's your turn.
Yeah. So I've got a bit of a different one from the rest of y'all. So mine is a mixture of stuff that definitely happened and a little bit of mysticism and magical stuff that may not actually happen, but who knows, I'm not going to be the one to explain how the universe works, but this is some interesting stuff that actually happened and is actually kind of terrifying. This actually comes from a user that that I had read, and his name is I Know I Am Very Hot. This is not an erotic piece, though, thankfully.
So that's his name? Hold on, that's his name?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
I know I am very hot. That's his username.
But he's got a hot, spicy story for us here.
Yeah. Also, I want to say this in advance. He's English is not his first language, so I'm going to try to read this as normally as possible. But some of the words I might stumble over because of the syntaxing, but should be good. Okay, back in 2010, I was 20 years old. It was my sophomore year in university. I found a bunch of old and antique photos of the family from my grandpa's side, my father's father, taken in 1910, 1915, 1917, 1920, and 1935. Two photos caught my attention, which were taken in 1915, and each photo had an inscription. One said, "This photo taken March 15th, 1915, of the Dhakaval," with a stamp saying Surat, India. I am Thai, but the family photo was taken in India. One photo is a group photo consisting of 10 people wearing all white, and the women wore a huge amount of gold jewelry on them. The second photo consisted of 12 people taken in the same area, but are moved up to the second floor of the house. I took these 2 photos to my grandpa and asked where they were taken and who are they. Grandpa looked at the photos for a few seconds and said, "Oh, this is Dad's house, the great-grandfather, in Surat, India. The haunted mansion I used to tell you about when you were young." At that time, my grandpa was already 95 years old. He took the first photo and told me to move close to him, and he started pointing. The man at the back on the left is my dad. That's the great-grandfather. And the man next to him is my half-brother. Dad married my mom when his first wife passed away. In the second row, the lady on the very left is my mom, the great-grandmother. As you can see, she looks quite different from the rest because she is Siamese, or what they call Thailand at the time of Siam. So, at the time this photo was taken, I was inside her tummy. That's what the grandpa said. The lady next to her is another in-law, my half-brother's wife. The fourth lady sitting in the middle of the photo is my grandmother, so this would be a great-grandmom. The lady on her left is her younger sister, who remains single, and the rest of the people in this photo I can't remember. Then you look at the second photo. This is the right corner of the house facing the backyard beside the family cemetery. And you see the balcony on the right side of the photo. That leads to the third floor of the house, where there are 3 water tanks supplying for the whole house. It is where we found the in-law's body. And you see the infant that my half-brother is holding. He is my older brother and almost died from being sacrificed. He was saved by the in-law who was murdered later. The door behind my half-brother is my dad's bedroom. It's painted crimson red. Grandpa talked with a neutral tone, as if what he just said is a normal thing that happens every day. Then my grandpa looked at the first photo again, and he pointed at his grandma, the great-grandmother. This person killed, and he moved his finger to the brother-in-law's, or the half-brother's wife, killed her, and she haunted grandma for the rest of her life. In Surat, India, there's a local belief that happens once in a blue moon on how to attain wealth in a shortcut way. It's said that a child who was born in the early of the year with a specific body marking is the key person of the ritual. Once one of the family members receives a sign and information about the auspicious date, they will then have to princely dress the infant and put the infant in front of a specific cave instructed to them. You're allowed to go into the cave and take out treasure, and then you never look back at the infant ever again. Yes, I know you must be like, what? How? Why? I asked Grandpa the same question. Why? And he said, greed. Greed is the only thing that made you willing to sacrifice others in exchange for treasure. How? Grandpa said he heard the entity showed up in each family in different ways. It appeared to his grandmother in her dreams, saying if it wants the youngest infant, which would be the grandpa's older brother who was just born. The grandpa wasn't born yet. So the entity wanted this infant, dressed the infant up, and put him in front of this cave. And then he asked his grandpa, well, what is this thing? And the grandpa said, it depends on your belief. Some say it's a demon. Some say it's a deity. The Gujarati Muslim call it a jinn. I asked my grandpa, why did your grandma want more wealth? Because you were super rich at the time. And his grandpa simply said again, greed. So, back in 1915, his great-grandmother was still a few months pregnant with the grandpa. Her husband and stepson went back to Bangkok to work at their family business to get. And so she was the only one there that spoke Siamese or Thai, and in India. And so the grandma comes to her, the great grandma comes to her and says, I want your 1-year-old kid. I'm going to sacrifice her. Sacrifice him for this treasure. And she was just supposed to accept it. But the half brother, and in particular his wife, she was able to save the baby from being sacrificed. She figured out the date of the sacrifice. As soon as she got the information, she telegrammed the father and told him that this was going to happen. And so he got back as fast as he could and yelled at his mom, telling him she's not allowed to sacrifice his kid. At this point, the user, he asked his grandpa, what would happen to the infant if the ritual went forward? And he said what he had heard from other locals and from his father and other people is that after you put the infant in front of the thing, you go in and you go get treasure, and you're not supposed to look at the infant ever again. And as you're walking away, you'll hear a snap, like a neck is being broken. And if at any point that you were to look back, the treasure in your hand would disappear, but the baby would be alive, but they would be either blind or unable to speak or deaf. That was the downfall of your action of greed. So, growing up in the mansion, Grandpa knew that his grandma and that in-law never liked each other ever again because she stopped the ritual from happening by getting the father to come back and stop it. And one day, the in-law went missing. Nobody could see it. No one saw her for a week. Then, one day, the housemaid went up to the upper level to check the water level in the tanks, which she had to do every so often to make sure there was plenty in there. And she started screaming at the top of her lungs. And everyone rushed her. And they found the in-law's body was in the water tower. She was dead. She didn't go up there and drown herself. It was clear that she was murdered. And they knew the only person in the family that would do that would be the grandma. But she was also the matriarch of the family. There was no talking back against her. Then he said that his grandpa said that his grandpa started saying that he saw the ghost of the in-law a few days after the body was found. And she started torturing the grandma every day, keeping her awake all night long, or like grabbing her legs while she's underneath, while they're sitting at a table. And she kept complaining about all these horrible things this ghost was doing. It happened for 8 straight years. Then the grandma was on her deathbed, and she confessed to murdering the in-law because she prevented the ritual from happening. And then she died, and the ghost seemingly disappeared. Then that infant that was going to be sacrificed lived into their early 90s and then passed away of old age. And his grandpa then went on to tell him, he said, India is a land of wonders. Everything that you could imagine could be found there. A magic trick, all the rituals and paranormal activities, and living folklore could be found there. That's the end of the story.
A lot to unpack here. Wow. There's some comments from across social media. Some would say, what a story on YouTube. Someone is saying Luke has watched too much anime. I don't really.
I have, but yeah, this was an interesting story to me. I like stories from other countries a lot.
Yeah.
I like reading on, especially folklore and mysticism. Um, I do believe that this woman was going to sacrifice this infant. I do believe that's a true story. And I do believe that she murdered because she did confess it to all their assembled family that she did murder that woman. Whether you believe in the jinn or you believe in any of the other stuff, like the ghost, that's up for interpretation for everyone. But this was definitely a thing that happened, and it happened all over the world. It wasn't just India that had folklore, ritualistic sacrifice and stuff like that. Um, so I found this to be a very interesting story because that kind of dark magic is definitely something I like reading about. Obviously would never think that that was a thing that anyone should do, but I do think it's a really interesting part of human history is reading these dark rituals and things that people had done.
Some more comments here. Encore Luke. Encore Luke. Someone said it looks like the next plot of the next Paranormal Activity movie. Someone said,
Yeah.
wait, somebody actually typed all this out?
Yeah. It's I paraphrased him a little bit. There was a little bit I didn't go into because my voice was starting to dry up and I couldn't say it all. But yeah, there was more. It was a very long story, and I found it very interesting.
Well, I said earlier I was giving Luke crap that Jack and I had these more stories than him that we were going to read tonight and how unfair it was. But after listening to your story now, I can see why you have one thing.
Just pick the one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Babe Ruth. You knock it out of the park. It doesn't matter if you get a lot of at bats.
Your thoughts, Jack?
I mean, it's wild, because just so much happened. But also, I don't know. I guess I kind of do believe in, that type of stuff, the supernatural stuff. And so, just the thought of it out there in the middle of the woods is this jinn that requires such a intense thing for something so small like money is unsettling.
Is money and greed the root of all evil? Is that you're telling me?
Well, greed, I guess, but
she was really that worried about the sacrifice not happening, though. They're willing to
murder someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was so they were always people who supposedly did this ritual had something of great value given to them, something that beyond what a normal rich person, which they were normal rich people. So this was something that she was thinking, wow, we're going to get something so wonderful. And all we have to do is sacrifice this baby,
That's all.
And this was just how it was done.
Holy shit. Jack, you're up next.
Okay, well,
you can't top that.
No, I'm not going to try to top it, but but this next story, I do have another one, so I do have this one here, and this story is from someone that also wanted to remain anonymous, so I'll just go ahead and respect that. And they kind of start their story off with like they're going to they're hanging out with their friends. It's like after work, and it's kind of like a normal kind of night for them. And a normal night for them is to go out into like this kind of secluded area and smoke some weed.
Okay.
And they said it was about midnight, and we were doing the usual, smoking and listening to music. We noticed a local police officer driving around with a spotlight in this nearly empty parking lot. Paranoia set in, so we put out the bull and waited in silence for him to leave. Eventually he left, and we continued on. All of a sudden, this woman came out of nowhere, totally ragged, stopped in front of our car, staring into the windshield at us. Shivers went down my spine as I couldn't get over why she would have been doing this. Like, why just stop and stare at you kind of thing. She eventually walked away. And at that point, I was just ready to leave. As a police officer, you're kind of like, party coming, getting busted up here, and there's people staring at us. But one of the three of us who didn't see this person directly was convinced that we were just high and paranoid, and maybe there just wasn't anyone there in the first place. And they were like, well, let's just chill out. Let's just sit here for a little while longer, listen to some more music. I mean, you gotta imagine, like, after work, and this is like a routine for you. You don't think that something crazy is going on. And the poster was saying, I was shaking, I was very uneasy. This whole thing it just felt unsafe. And I kept looking over my shoulder behind my car. My friends were joking with me about how, weird everything was, and I was just, I was the one who was the only one who was paranoid. But I had a feeling we weren't safe. A few minutes later, I had begun to look over my shoulder less and less. Started to get a little more comfortable. Started to realize maybe this wasn't as big of a deal. But I had to look behind the car to see the same woman started sprinting towards us. Started reaching for the driver's door. He looks out the window and sees that she's got a knife in her hands. And so he says that his, this is his words, he says, my sympathetic nervous system kicked in, and I started the car without saying a word and peeled out of the parking lot, not stopping until I was off campus. He mentions he was on campus. Apparently she had been creeping around all the cars in the parking lot, going all the way around the perimeter just so that she could attack from an area where he wasn't looking. And then later, he goes on to say that later we found out the police were looking for this person. She had previously killed her husband and the woman he was having an affair with. Police were trying to look for her. That's why they were in the parking lot at the time. And apparently, what they believed was that she was trying to steal their car to get away.
That's all?
That's it.
Luke, go ahead. You unmuted.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say this. This sounds like something that happens a little bit too often. This happens a lot, actually. I've seen different like unsolved mystery files or stuff like that, where someone who has committed like a horrible crime then like sees no other way out but to try to get away fast, and they will try to steal from someone else, and they might even try to kill someone else to get away.
It's certainly possible. I was when I found it, I was like, "There's something to this," but I do wonder what became of it. Did they catch this person? It gets kind of vague towards the end, and I wasn't sure if they caught this person or not.
Well, sounds like they know who the person was. So I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Likelihood, they can't run forever.
Right.
I can see what the person was saying when they talked about. So obviously they're smoking pot, right? So they're already paranoid, and they start seeing the cops are nearby and all that. So it kind of all matches up together. Why, like he was trying to get to, why the cops are nearby.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I forgot about that part. Actually, I'm not gonna lie.
Well, it wasn't near as long as Luke's story.
I picked a big one. Just.
I guess he didn't really get into how he reacted to the door trying to be open more. That seems like terrifying.
Yeah. If someone's coming at you, with a weapon, or even if they're not, if they're just trying to get in your car.
Yeah, that's just terrifying alone. Oh, well, I think I'm going to share the last story this evening. And this is my third story of the evening. I'm an overachiever.
Yeah.
This is submitted by Alicia L., and it's called, I've titled it just after reading it, The Scary Baby Monitor Story. We'll get going here. Wait for this. This background music's amazing. Yeah, if you're listening live, make sure you like, share, all that. Help us out here. Get this spread a little bit more. We're live across all social media. It's like Twitter has the biggest listenership, viewership right now. TikTok, I've just started going live on there, so it's just minimal people. But if you're listening, we appreciate it. Some people listen on YouTube too. So I'll get into this. This is Scary Baby Monitor Story. I'm going to... Man, this music is just epic.
It is. Actually going to ask you where you got it later on.
Oh, I did it all. I did it all, man. You know I did that. It's going to cut me off here eventually. It's going to stop. What you're about to hear is the scariest thing I've ever experienced. My sister and her husband were going away to Hawaii for a week. My sister asked me to stay at their house to watch my 2-year-old nephew, Sean, for the duration of the trip, which was planned to be about 9 days, it sounds like. 2 was a tricky age for me because Sean was still in diapers at the time, and changing diapers was the last thing I would ever want to be doing. But family is family, and I had to return the favor to them. Makes sense. That's kind. I slept in the guest room upstairs for the duration of the stay. By the 3rd day, I had everything down to a rhythm. Wake up, feed him, do my work in the living room while supervising him as he played, feed him again, then put him to bed. My sister had a high-tech baby monitor that connects to a touchscreen tablet. You know, the kind with a camera on it. It records sound and video. The camera recorded from above Sean's crib and sends information, real-time notifications, directly to the tablet. I would keep the tablet beside me while he slept, no matter where I was, the living room, the bedroom, or anywhere. Midday, most of the time, he would get sleepy, and I'd take him to his crib for a nap. On the 4th day, while Sean was taking a nap, I was in the backyard at my sister's, sitting in the outside bar area. I was on my laptop with the baby monitor tablet right beside me. Sean started laughing at something, so I checked the tablet. I saw him standing in his crib. I knew at this point in time, it was time to go up and get him out of his crib. I took him back outside with me, and he played in his little electric toy car for the remainder of the day. I just watched Sean play with his toys while I would either be doing work on my laptop or just watching something on TV. Shortly after dinner time, I changed him one last time and laid him down in his crib to go to sleep. An hour or so passed by where there wasn't much else for me to do, so I decided I'd go ahead and head to bed in the upstairs guest bedroom. While I was laying in bed in the dark room, suddenly the tablet lit up. It was sitting on the bedside table. The tablet would go off if it detected a certain amount of sound or movement. I was comfortable with the position I was in and didn't really want to get up, but I noticed the tablet went dark, but I still heard Sean making sounds. The sound of laughter. I decided I'd go ahead and check the tablet. I got confused when I picked up the tablet and saw the screen was black, yet it appeared the screen was still on. I heard Sean say the word "yeah" to somebody, or to something, as he continued laughing. Something didn't feel right, so I decided to go check on him. On my way to Sean's room, I was calling his name. When I entered the room, he was standing in his crib. I asked him why he was awake and to whom he was talking to. He then tried reaching for something above the crib, but his short arms couldn't reach it. It seemed like he was trying to reach at the camera for the baby monitor, so I pointed at it and I said, "Camera?" And he then replied, "Yeah." I picked him up to give him a little lift to see what he was trying to do exactly with the camera. As I lifted him, he used his little thumb to cover up the camera lens. My heart suddenly sank as I began to put pieces together. Somebody would have shown him this, and the reason the tablet went dark was because somebody was covering it. But I knew it wasn't Sean because it was literally impossible and he couldn't reach it. I asked Sean, "Is someone in here?" He responded by pointing at the room's closed closet door. I picked him up, ran outside to the neighbor's house, pounding on the door while screaming for help. An elderly woman answered, and she let me in to call the police with her phone. While I was making the call, she was comforting Sean. Shortly after, the police showed up and said that they checked the upstairs closet and it was open, but nobody was inside. The fact that it was open says everything to me. Somebody was in Sean's closet, They must have made an escape when I took Sean and ran to the neighbors. The officers told me to stay at someone else's place for the night, and the elderly woman next door allowed us to stay there. After that, I watched Sean at my apartment for another night. My sister and her husband had to cut the trip short after hearing the news.
I can't do that.
Yeah, obviously I have kids, right? So when I first read this, the submission, I thought, man, that's actually crazy, because we all have these, like, everything's so high tech today, right? Like growing up, you had these little baby monitors, just had sound, but now it's advanced to the point with video, and I've actually used this for my youngest child as well. So when I was imagining just the realization that when you finally come to the conclusion that somebody was covering it up while you're looking at it, because that makes sense, right? She's saying that all of a sudden the screen went black, but I was still hearing voices.
Right. And you can tell when you look at like a tablet if the screen is still on, but just like dark.
Yeah. Absolutely. You can tell when the screen's still on, because it's like still has some lighting, around the surface of the tablet, but you also still are hearing sound. So then when you go up there, right, and the kid and little kids that age always do what they're shown. That's like the immediate reaction, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that she picked him up and he wanted to play with that camera, and when he did, he covered it up. It was like, oh shit. Closet doors closed. Then as the cops searched the house, the closet doors open. So
yeah, the closet doors open, and so whoever was in there, if there's presumably there was someone in there.
Yeah.
They heard someone say, is someone here? Right.
Then heard you running out of the house with a kid.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness they did.
You don't know the intentions. You're right. Like this person, like you don't know.
And they made a very quick snap decision to get out of there, because they tarried just like a few seconds. It could have gone a whole lot worse.
Yeah, I think the thing that she talked about at like lunchtime, that this, like, she implied that this happened, but she didn't pick up on it. Like, I don't know if you caught that. So this person was lying and waiting for a while.
Right. That's just so wild. It's like you can't even get your head in you can't get your mind in the head of someone like that.
And I think for me, like, you were asked to do something really important, like watch your sister's kid. That, and you're staying at their house. It's not your house. So this is a huge undertaking. You're changing diapers, you're feeding the kid, and it's your responsibility to take care and protect this kid. So, man, it's just bone chilling to me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow. So if you're listening out there live, let us know what you think. I certainly felt like this one hit close at home to me when I read it.
For sure.
People are asking for one more story. I could do that. You guys up for one more story? My story?
Yeah, you got one.
Yeah, this is a 100% true story. From when I was a kid. Now I don't know all the details down to a T like these people do. I always give people credit when they're able to so vividly remember everything from something when they're so young. Maybe it's just me when I just can't. But I can remember a terrifying thing that happened to me. So yeah, if you're watching live, give it a like, share it, as I'll go into this story that happened to me. I want to say not quite 10 years old. Like I said, I don't know for a fact. We had a house growing up for a while before I moved into the city and met you guys, where it was out in the country. And so I'm just painting the picture here, the scenery of it. So you didn't really see a lot of people. We had like one neighbor, but you couldn't really, you couldn't really see their house. So it was secluded. I'm saying it's secluded is what I'm saying. One night I was laying in bed and I had fallen asleep and I had a bunk bed and I had a step sibling at this point in time. And the step sibling, I had a younger brother, step sibling, slept on the top bunk. I slept on the bottom bunk. I woke up in the middle of the night, and the way the bed sits in the room, you can see out the door into the kitchen. I woke up in the middle of the night, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, I looked around the room, and you know how it is when you first wake up and you look back on things, you're like, was I dreaming or not? Right? Like you consider that. Was this a dream? Did it really happen? I looked around the room and I saw the brand new Michael Jordan poster I had put on the wall in my room that day. Glass of water. I remember getting a drink of the glass of water sitting on my bedside. And as I laid back down, my little brother's arm was hanging over the step brother's arm was hanging over the edge of the top bunk. I laid down and kind of turned my head to the side, and I could see out the door into the kitchen. And when I looked out there, there were 3 figures standing out in the kitchen, middle of the kitchen. Not terribly far away. I'd say about 10 feet away, probably. It's very dark. And the height of these and size of these individuals was interesting because, or entities, I don't know what it was. It was humanoid shaped, I guess you could say. The size of them was very interesting because it was like 3 perfectly varying sizes. You know how you see those sizes on bumper stickers, like a family, like back of a window or something? You'll have like the dad, the mom, and then the kid.
Right.
Heck, some of them even get cute and have a dog on it. This was not the scenario. So the first person that I could see to my right would have been its left was the tallest, then the shortest, then the smallest. And I couldn't see their faces. It just looked like the color of skin, like peach. Like a very circular form of a face with no figures on the face at all. Granted, it was dark in the room, but the size of everything was just so perfect, if that makes sense. It was odd. And they were waving at me in sequence. So with one's hand would go one way, the other one's hand would go the same way. All of them. Back and forwards. I'm terrified. I don't know what to do because the way the house was laid out, my dad's room is clear across the house. So I'm young, and I think if I scream for help, something bad might happen to me or my dad or my brother. I don't know. Because it's a long haul. This person's literally between the room outside the kitchen and me, and then my dad's room clear across the house, my stepmom's room as well. I didn't know what to do, so I laid there, and I closed my eyes really tight, right? Like, I'm going to pretend that I'm asleep. They're going to go away. And it didn't. I opened my eyes back up. They're still there waving at me, appear to be staring at me, which I say that that's odd because I couldn't see anything on their face, but they were facing me perfectly, just waving. So I hid under the blankets. And I waited what felt like for an eternity. And I took the blankets off my head, and they're still there waving at me. And I'm just terrified as a kid. I don't know what to do. I just hide under the blankets for so long, I eventually fell asleep. Then when I woke up for school, everything was fine. I still to this day don't know, was this a dream or did it really happen?
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's definitely terrifying. But that definitely comes back to how I was talking about that. I actually do believe in these like supernatural things.
Yeah.
Maybe if I get it wrong, I could probably, more perfectly remember stories of my own like that. But that also goes back to when I was talking about like what about when they can see you, right? It's one thing where it's like, oh, there's
something weird going on. Yeah,
but you can be like, well, maybe they don't see me yet. But when you said they were waving at you, it's undeniable, and it's like, I can't.
That was actually the most terrifying part of that story.
Yeah,
I was at that point. I was like, no.
It was so weird because then, like I said, I go back to what was I sleep? Was this a dream? And I brought up the poster and taking the drink of the glass of water because it just seemed so real. Now I get you can have a dream so real. I get that.
Yeah, that one's definitely in the books of like, what was that?
So, years later, it was on MySpace, because I haven't really told the story too much. I told somebody the story, and they claimed to be a what do you call it? A medium, what's another term? Like a psychic.
Spiritualist, psychic,
Yeah.
medium. Yeah.
And I told them that story, and the lady said to me, "Wait, do you still live there?" I said, "No." I said, "Oh, that good. You need to make sure that you don't even think about it. Just make sure you're not even thinking about it. Just move on from it." I said, "Why?" She's like, I'm not going to tell you why, but I'm just glad you're not near there." And I was thinking, like, what the heck? What the hell?
Wow.
Like, then I tried to look up into it. There's a lot of different things out there and theories on stuff. Most of the stuff you'll find is like shadow people, but this just seems so much more
Seems
real.
different than shadow people.
Yeah, there's a lot of different demonic things that are connected to things like that. But I mean, I'll never know, never experience anything like it again, and I certainly would never want to. But for me as a kid, and still to this day, I sleep with the door closed because
Yeah.
it was weird for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely gonna be making sure my door's closed. I'm gonna be looking into my bed tonight, just in case.
Yeah, that's 100%. I mean, that's exactly how I remember. Like I said, I don't have the details that some of these great people did in these awesome stories they shared with us tonight, but that's my story. Yeah, let us know in the comments what you think the best story of the night was. Somebody just commented mine. Somebody else. It was Wrestling Soap Opera. Thanks for hanging out with us all night on TikTok. It's awesome of you. Other people are on Twitter. They're just leaving comments. They're leaving post replies, but somebody said the homeless man story takes home the trophy tonight. It's certainly hard for me to argue with the homeless man under the bed story.
Yeah. I definitely want I definitely want to hear more of other people's stories too. So hopefully we get some submissions on those.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you can go to yourscarystories.com. There's also Your Scary Stories at Yahoo, or you can shoot me a message. I'm at Podcast Father on everything. Also, you can submit to it off the website or my website. Jeff Townsend Media. Of course, this is a Jeff Townsend Media production, and I'm thankful for all of you that submit your stories. And of course, I'm thankful for my friends Luke and Jack for taking the time to help me share some stories tonight.
Yeah, it was great. It was great to be here.
Even terrifying. If Luke had, terrifying, really. Terrifying. Luke's got to have a sore throat though after his story.
I always have a sore throat. I have a horrible one right now.
Anyways, with that being said, we appreciate your guys' support as always, and we'll be doing this, so make sure you look out for us to go live across social media again. Any last words? Paranormalistic? Is that a word? I just said it. Words to leave us with here before I do my catchphrase?
Definitely check your closets, check under your beds, close your doors, and lock your doors. That's what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, always a good idea to do locking the doors and stuff. You know, this is one thing I've always thought, though, about people who get attacked by, ghosts or demons or stuff like that. I've always felt like if they can touch you and do you harm, you can touch them back. So you might as well go down swinging. So I'm prepared if I get attacked by some sort of, peach-colored entity like you described. I'm going to go out hard.
I didn't know how else to describe it. It was like literally so peach. It was like a crayon peach color.
Man, that just makes it worse. Everything is just like the worst.
Yeah, that's absolutely horrifying.
Not as horrifying as the green blob blocking between you two guys, but it seemed to help with the interference, so we'll take it. I appreciate everybody listening to Your Scary Stories. We'll be back soon with more stories, with another journey you can go on with us. So, until next time, keep being you and keep being great.